The last time my family saw me mixing drinks behind a bar, my mother's eyes held that familiar cocktail of disappointment and pity. Dad checked his watch 3 times during our 15-minute conversation. My sister Victoria didn't even bother, hiding her eye roll when I mentioned I couldn't make it to her destination wedding in Santorini because I couldn't afford it. Little did they know, I owned the resort next door to her venue. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how the black sheep of the Matthews family became the wolf they never saw coming. I was supposed to follow the Matthews family blueprint: prestigious university, corporate ladder, country club membership by 30. My father built his law practice from scratch. My mother managed their social standing with military precision, and my sister collected degrees and accolades like they were limited edition handbags. Then there was me, Ellie Matthews, who dropped out of business school in my final year. Taking a gap year, I called it. Throwing your life away, they called it. Success isn't a straight line, I told my father over our last real conversation at their Thanksgiving table 5 years ago. Neither is unemployment, he shot back, cutting his turkey with surgical precision. But you seem determined to explore every detour. My mother touched her pearls, a nervous habit that appeared whenever I threatened the family image. Darling, ProLegal is still holding that junior analyst position. Your father pulled strings. I'm not interested in corporate law, Mom. My words landed like bombs on fine china. Victoria, fresh from making partner at her consulting firm, smiled with practiced sympathy. Not everyone has the drive, Mom. Ellie's just more free-spirited. Free-spirited. Their code word for directionless, failed potential, family disappointment. I left that night with my mother's leftover turkey sandwich and my father's business card for a career counselor. I also left with something they couldn't see: a burning determination that would fuel everything that followed. I moved downtown to a shoebox apartment above a 24-hour laundromat. The constant hum of washing machines became the soundtrack to my new life, one that my family thought consisted solely of mixing martinis at the Blue Pearl, a hotel bar with an ocean view but mediocre tips. Slinging drinks to tourists isn't a career, my father reminded me during his quarterly check-in calls, each one shorter than the last. What my family never bothered to ask: why would someone who graduated top of her class in economics before dropping out choose bartending specifically? Why the Blue Pearl and not the trendier spots downtown? They were too wrapped up in their disappointment to notice I wasn't just mixing drinks, I was mixing with the people who controlled the city's real estate market. The Blue Pearl sat in the lobby of the Oceanside Grand, a once glorious hotel that had faded like an old photograph. But it still attracted an interesting clientele: investment bankers unwinding after closing deals, property developers discussing their next projects, hotel executives visiting from corporate headquarters. People reveal things to bartenders they'd never tell their therapists. Between pouring top-shelf whiskey and crafting signature cocktails, I absorbed every word, every number, every strategy. I became invisible in plain sight, just another service worker blending into the background while conversations about million-dollar deals flowed as freely as the alcohol. Meanwhile, I lived on 20% of my income and invested the rest. I took online courses in hotel management and real estate finance. I studied market trends until my eyes burned. I networked with guests who never suspected I was anything more than a friendly face behind the bar. You've been here, what? 2 years now? Asked Martin Reed, a regular who headed the regional division of Pinnacle Hotels. Ever think about moving up to management? I smiled and poured his usual old-fashioned. Actually, I've been thinking about ownership. He laughed, assuming I meant managing a small bar of my own someday. I let him believe that. People underestimating me had become my greatest advantage. My family's perception of me calcified into something comfortable for them. Poor Ellie, stuck in a dead-end job, too stubborn to admit her mistakes. During our increasingly rare phone calls, I never corrected them. When they mentioned their vacations, promotions, and acquisitions, I offered vague updates about making ends meet and exploring opportunities. Victoria was especially fond of sending me job listings for executive assistant positions. It could be a foot in the door, Ellie. Not everyone can start at the top. The irony wasn't lost on me. I wasn't starting at the top. I was building from the ground up, just not in a way they could recognize or respect. 3 years into my bartending career, I secured my first silent investor partnership in a struggling boutique hotel across town. 6 months of renovations later, we sold it for double the investment. My share went directly into my next project, a small vacation property management company that specialized in luxury short-term rentals. By year 4, I had minority stakes in 7 properties and had launched Matthews Hospitality Group, a name my family never connected to me because they had long since stopped paying attention to my life. The company existed mostly on paper and in digital spaces, with a small but efficient team working remotely. I continued bartending 3 nights a week, not because I needed the money, but because it remained my most valuable source of market, intelligence, and connections. "You should meet this consultant I know," Martin told me one evening after his 3rd drink loosened his usual corporate reserve. Hotel group from Singapore looking to expand their U.S. portfolio. They're targeting undervalued beachfront properties along the coast. 24 hours later, I was signing a partnership agreement that would change everything. The foreign investment allowed me to pursue what had become my white whale, the Rivera Hotel, a struggling but iconic property with unparalleled ocean views sitting adjacent to the exclusive Helios Resort where my sister had booked her destination wedding. The Rivera had been mismanaged for years, its potential squandered by outdated strategies and neglected infrastructure. I had been watching it, studying it, waiting for the perfect moment to make my move. When the opportunity came, I executed with the precision my father would have admired, had he known. The acquisition was complex and required every skill I'd developed and connection I'd cultivated. The deal closed quietly, as I preferred. A holding company owned by Matthews Hospitality Group became the official new owner. The staff was retained, operations continued seamlessly, and renovations began discreetly, floor by floor. I finally left my bartending position, telling colleagues I was moving to the West Coast for a restaurant management opportunity. In reality, I moved into the penthouse suite of my hotel, overseeing the transformation while expanding my portfolio to include 3 more properties in key vacation markets. By the time Victoria's save the date arrived, sent to my old apartment, addressed and forwarded twice before reaching me, Matthews Hospitality Group had become a significant player in the luxury hotel market, though I remained purposefully anonymous in my role as founder and CEO. I RSVP'd with my regrets, citing financial constraints. Victoria replied with a gift card for a discount airline and the phone number of a friend who could possibly get you a deal on a shared room. Perfect. "Are you sure you want to do this?" asked Liam, my operations director and the only person who knew the full story of my family and my plans. We stood in my office overlooking the sparkling ocean, reviewing the final preparations for what the staff believed was simply a high-profile wedding party booking. "They're your family, Ellie. Maybe just telling them about your success would be enough." I watched the sunset paint the water gold and remembered all the family vacations where I was told to lower my expectations, to be realistic about my place in the world. "It's not about humiliating them," I said, though part of me couldn't deny the satisfaction I anticipated. "It's about them finally seeing me, the real me, not the failure they invented." The Rivera's transformation had been my most passionate project. What was once tired and outdated now exuded understated luxury. We preserved its historic charm while introducing modern amenities and sustainable practices that had earned us features in travel magazines. The rooms were booked solid months in advance, except for the block I'd reserved for this specific week. I had arranged everything meticulously. My family would arrive 3 days before Victoria's wedding, staying at the Rivera because the Helios next door had been unexpectedly overbooked, an arrangement I'd negotiated with their management, who were now my friendly competitors. They would experience the hotel as valued guests, unaware of who owned it. And then, at precisely the right moment, they would learn the truth. The Matthews family arrived on a perfect June afternoon. From my private security feed, I watched my father hand his keys to the valet, my mother comment on the elegant lobby, and Victoria inspect every detail with the critical eye she'd inherited from both parents. For 3 days, I remained hidden in plain sight, disguised as Emily Wells, the hotel's hands-on assistant manager, who seemed to appear whenever the Matthews family needed something. I wore light makeup, styled my hair differently, and affected a slight southern accent, Simple changes that worked because my family had never truly looked at me closely enough to see through such minor alterations. I personally handled their room upgrade, arranged their dinner reservations, and guided their excursions. I listened to their conversations about me, the minimal mentions that revealed how peripheral I'd become in their lives. "Have you heard from your sister?" my mother asked Victoria over breakfast on their second day. "She sent a gift." "Nothing special, just something from one of those online gift shops. You know Ellie, always last minute, always cutting corners." The last-minute gift had actually been commissioned 6 months earlier. Handcrafted jewelry featuring the coordinates of significant family locations, including the spot where we'd taken our last happy family photo 15 years ago. They wouldn't receive it until the wedding day. On the final evening before the wedding, I arranged a special dinner for them in our rooftop restaurant. The chef prepared a custom menu featuring elevated versions of dishes from our childhood family meals. My father noted the exceptional wine list. My mother commented on the tasteful decor. Victoria couldn't stop taking photos for her social media. As they finished their dessert, my grandmother's apple cake recipe that I'd given to our pastry chef, I stepped onto the rooftop in my true identity, wearing not a uniform, but a tailored suit that cost more than my father's. The transformation on their faces happened in stages: confusion, disbelief, recognition, shock. "Ellie?" My mother's voice barely carried across the now empty restaurant. "Hello, family." I took a seat at their table, nodding to the server who brought me a glass of champagne. "I hope you've enjoyed your stay at the Riviera." "What are you doing here?" Victoria asked. "I thought you couldn't afford—" "I own this hotel," I said simply. The silence that followed held 5 years of assumptions crashing down around us. My father, ever the attorney, recovered first. "You own—" "What do you mean, own?" "Matthews Hospitality Group owns this property and 7 others across the country. I am the founder and CEO of Matthews Hospitality Group." I sipped my champagne. "I've been in the hospitality business for quite some time now." "But you're a bartender," Victoria said, her voice small and confused. "I was a bartender. I was also an investor, a student of the market, and apparently invisible to my own family." I kept my voice level despite the emotions threatening to overflow. "While you were busy pitying me, I was building something." My mother's hand went to her pearls. "But you never said anything." "Would you have believed me if I had?" I asked gently. The truth hung between us like a physical presence. We all knew the answer. My father studied me with new eyes. "How? Where did you get the capital to—" I started small and grew methodically, made connections, took calculated risks, applied everything I learned before dropping out and everything I've learned since. I allowed myself a small smile. "You always said actions speak louder than words, Dad." I decided to show rather than tell. Victoria's expression shifted between disbelief and something that looked almost like respect. "So all this time, when we thought—" "Yes, all this time." What followed wasn't the dramatic family meltdown some part of me had imagined during darker moments of my journey. There were no tearful apologies or dramatic reconciliations fit for a television movie. Instead, something more nuanced unfolded. My father bombarded me with questions about business structures and investment strategies, his tone oscillating between professional interest and paternal pride he didn't quite know how to express. My mother kept touching my sleeve as if confirming I was really there, really successful, really her daughter whom she'd misjudged so profoundly. Victoria sat quietly for a long time before finally asking, "Why reveal it like this? Why not just tell us years ago?" The question deserved honesty. "Because you wouldn't have seen me," I said. "You would have heard the words, but filtered them through your perception of me as the family failure. I needed to change the context completely, before I could change your minds." The wedding proceeded the next day as planned. I attended not as the broke bartender sister, but as the owner of a neighboring luxury hotel. The gift I'd commissioned moved my sister to tears, the first genuine emotion we'd shared in years. Over the following months, our relationships began a careful reconstruction. My parents toured my other properties with new eyes. Victoria called More frequently, our conversations tentative but increasingly authentic. My father finally asked the question that had clearly been bothering him. Were you trying to punish us with all this secrecy? We were walking along the beach below the Riviera, watching the sunset in a rare moment of just the two of us. Not punish, I said after consideration. Wake up, maybe. I wanted to be seen for who I am, not who you decided I was. He nodded slowly. I've been a lawyer too long. I see evidence and build cases. The evidence showed a daughter who abandoned a promising future. So I built a case against your choices without investigating further. He looked at me directly. That was poor legal work on my part, and poorer fatherhood. It wasn't quite an apology, but from him it was monumental. Success is its own form of revenge. But what I hadn't anticipated was how hollow that revenge would feel compared to the simple relief of finally being seen. The broke bartender narrative had served its purpose. It had given me the space to build something authentic, away from family expectations and judgments. But maintaining that fiction had also cost me years of genuine connection with the people who, despite their flaws, were still my family. Matthew's hospitality group continued to grow. I remained at its helm, though no longer in secret. The Riviera became the flagship property, hosting Victoria's first anniversary celebration the following year, this time with me officially as her sister, not just the invisible hotel owner. My mother still occasionally sends me job listings, but now they're for executives in the hospitality industry, positions she thinks might interest me for potential hires. My father has referred legal clients my way. Victoria has asked my advice on investments, small steps, imperfect progress, but movement in a new direction. The family that once gathered around a Thanksgiving table to mourn my wasted potential now gathers at my hotels to celebrate what I've built. They still don't fully understand my journey, and perhaps they never will. But they're finally looking at me instead of through me. Sometimes success isn't about proving others wrong. Sometimes it's about proving to yourself that their opinions never defined your worth in the first place. I didn't need to buy a hotel to prove my value, but admittedly, the look on their faces when they realized who signed their room service bills was a moment I'll cherish forever. We all play roles in our families. For years, mine was the cautionary tale. Now I'm the success story they hadn't anticipated. Neither role fully captures who I am, but at least now we're having a different conversation. As for the Riviera, it continues to thrive, boasting the best sunset views on the coast and an owner who knows exactly what it feels like to be overlooked and underestimated. Perhaps that's why every staff member, from the maintenance team to the executive chef, knows they are seen, valued, and never judged by where they start, but by where they're determined to go. After all, some of us take a more scenic route to success and bring back better stories because of it.